Shalom, and welcome to Challenging Torah, a project of the Malibu Jewish Center and Synagogue. Well, our lives are a journey. We have moments of great joy, a pinnacle of joy and laughter that almost immediately usually ends up being followed by the depths of despair for some reason or other. Everything's going fine, and then there's this tremendous boulder that appears in the middle of the road. Our lives are a journey for us between belief and trust and an absolute feeling of abandonment, between having a good sense of where we're going and a sense of feeling lost. Our lives are a journey. Our lives are Torah. Yes, that's right. Our lives are Torah. I'd like to point out that the people in Genesis had absolutely no idea that their stories were going to turn out to be the stories that we read as Torah. Why did God set up a Torah and give us these teachings where people are so fallible, so vulnerable, so human? Because these stories are our stories. And so as we look at the Torah of our own lives and the story of our own journey, we see it reflected back in the mirror of the Torah story that's before us. This week's story, it's a road trip. This is the great journey story. And it starts off, as journeys often do, with wonderful light and blessing. And Aaron is told, when you light the lamps, all 7 of the lampstands, do so just as God has commanded. And Aaron follows Moses and does so, and it's like that moment where we light Shabbos candles and we feel like our entire evening has just been blessed. Here, this is the final piece that starts in the raising up Beha-alotekha of the light, and we light those lights. Aaron follows the directions exactly, and they're on the road. And the entire tabernacle is packed up, rolled up, everybody carries the piece they're supposed to, everybody gets into marching formation, every tribe knows where they're to be. 2 silver trumpets show up to announce their way on the journey. The ark goes with them. They're on the road, and God says, I'll be with you. As a matter of fact, they know when the cloud is on the tabernacle, they don't move, and so it says, on the 22nd day of the 2nd month, the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, and the Israelites saw that they should go on their journey. And they leave on their journey out of the wilderness of Sinai. What a long trip it's going to be. But they're only out for 3 days, we'd like to point out, when, being a good Israelite proto-Jewish group, they begin to discuss our favorite conversation. Food. What's for dinner? Any of you go on restaurant vacations? Any of you find foodies in your midst? Turns out we've been doing this for a long time, and we begin to complain about the food. If only, they say, we would be back in Egypt. Do you remember the lemons, the melons, the leeks, the garlic, the onions? Our gullets are shriveled, they say, and the riffraff among them, as they say in the Torah, begins to complain bitterly. If only we could have a decent meal. And God says, I gave you manna. What's the matter with manna? Manna, which looks like the color of little crystals, sparkles all over the desert. And when you gather it, you can do anything you want with it, and it tastes like rich cream. This is God as top chef. And God is a little offended that they don't like his menu. In fact, God is very offended after a while, and a fire breaks out in the camp, like, I'm watching you guys, stop complaining about the food. And they say, no, we won't complain. But a day later, if only we had meat. We hate this vegetarian diet. We're so bored. This is probably 2 weeks into the story. And God's upset. But not only is God upset, Moses and Aaron are upset. In fact, Moses throws himself on the floor and says, where am I going to get meat for this mass? 600,000 men plus. I can't get the meat, and there's nothing I can do about it. And God says, wait a minute. I'll get him meat. Don't worry. Really? And Moses says, excuse me, God, I know you're God, but meat, look how many people. God says, trust me. And God causes a west wind to come up, and the wind then blows the quail into the camp, and the camp is covered with quail. And of course, each one tries to collect as much as they can. Short of the story, they died with the meat sticking out of their mouth. God sends a plague, bad stomach troubles. This is turned into a horror vacation. Sort of reminds me of one of those vacations where, like you go on a cruise ship and everybody gets sick. It's now turned into a bad trip story. And it will continue. It continues with a bad trip story because Moses is discussed in the gossip department. Gluttony took them out the first time. Gossip will take them out the second time. We're on the trip. What else do we have to do? Let's talk. Moses gets discussed by Aaron and his sister Miriam about that Cushite woman that he married who's a black lady, and is she a new wife, an old wife? It's not really clear. God says, listen up, everybody. That's my prophet. How dare you? And Miriam is stricken with leprosy. And as this portion ends, in the middle of what is going to be now, we can see a very long and very hot trip. Welcome to Torah as your life. Moses says the words, Ana Elna Rafanala. God, please heal her now. And we realize again that we can be our highest selves and ask for healing and God's guidance. God grumbles. Miriam's out for a week. But the journey continues with Miriam healed, reassurance until the next big boulder in the road, which will be next week. Join us for Torah study.